It's very meaningful. It's important and meaningful, I think, to all of us. And so the thoughts that I'm coming across and perspectives of my past, and as we continue to grow and build Harvard basketball and being a part of this Harvard community, the first thing I think of is the word educator. It means so much to me. My mother was a longtime school teacher. She taught for 50 years and still does some sub teaching, and she can't stop, I guess. But it's always been in our household, and so the educator teacher label for me is very, very important, and it goes beyond or before, I would say, coach. And I think of the three words that are most meaningful to me as well, Jim, are the teach, lead, and serve. And I think of Mark, and hopefully you'll won't mind me saying this about one of the things that I'm so admire about the NBA of having games played on Dr. Martin Luther King Day, having a way of honoring someone who probably stood for everything that we're talking about tonight, teaching, leadership, serving, inclusion, diversity. May not be anyone better that we can ever think of than Dr. Martin Luther King. And to be able to honor his name and his legacy by playing the sport of basketball and learning about his life and having the players speak to his impact and his inspiration throughout the whole time of that day and the games and hearing individuals around the game. I've always thought of that, Jim, as a perspective, as a way of what basketball has done. Basketball has a very broad brush, as we know. I think Aaron mentioned that in the intro of the way that basketball touches so many sectors of society. It's not a one sector sport, as I would like to say. I mean, it touches black, white, young, old. I think of President Drew Faust's comment about Harvard basketball a few years ago, and it's meant the most to me than my time being a part of this Harvard community, is that she said going to the Harvard basketball games has become the most diverse event on Harvard's campus. And she made a not sporting event.
No.
How wonderful is that to think of the sport of basketball playing a role in what we talk about today as diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging, to bring about communities, to bring about walks of life that maybe wouldn't necessarily be under the same roof if it wasn't for something to bear that linchpin to gather, to rally around. And I think of basketball has done that forever. I like to think that the grading of, when you think of professional sports, how basketball usually grades out the highest of how well it's done with being, how diverse it is, from the boardroom all the way down, as you, Jim, are a part owner of an NBA team. So all these layers and perspectives that I think of when I think of my experiences and things that come to mind with me, with how leadership, diversity, inclusion, and social justice come about through the game and the sport of basketball. Picking up a little bit what Mark just shared, and part of that, how he described the representation, but I thought of the word, how you model it, and how intentional you have to be. We've tried to do that within our program, is to model it in a way that this is not only right, but it's also possible. You are a member, Jim, and Mark, you've been a special guest, and with your special guest, you become an honorary member. So you're a member now. Coach Moore's been there as a coach. Excuse me, Aaron McDermott's been there, and Marshall, we got to get you to stop by. You get a free breakfast. I've been promising you that, but you haven't shown up yet. But we have our breakfast club. So in terms of things that we do for our program and for our overall community, bringing people together and having our team and having our players within our program to be in the room. Mark, you mentioned being at the table. We're saying we're in the room when these discussions happen, when they can hear from incredible people, voices, and to learn, to absorb, and to witness and to see and to feel discussions and topics of things that are in our society, social justice, inequities in education, healthcare, and business and politics. You name this topic, we've been able to discuss it with incredible members of the community and beyond, to be able to come to our incredible breakfast club that was started with the great and the late Professor Charles Ogletree, who is someone who, I think of teach, lead, serve. His picture and his name has to be associated with all three of those words. And we have an award. This is another way that you talk about trying to include and make sure this is a part of our DNA and our fabric of Harvard basketball, the Harvard community. But we've started an award in our basketball program to be named after Charles Ogletree, the Charles Ogletree Humanitarian Award, and using the word humanitarian for Dr. Gus White, who's on this webinar tonight. And he when he speaks, he always says hello to my fellow humans. So you're an individual, you're a person, you're a human being. You're not just someone who does this. You're not a male, you're not a female, you're not black. You're a human being. And Dr. King and others talked about humanity. While Breakfast Clubs brings about a great deal of humanity. And Professor Ogletree, we named the award after him for his incredible service in and out of the Harvard community, his unwavering support of individuals throughout Harvard and beyond. And so I'm just going back to ways in which, Jim, that we model and we're very intentional about making sure that our players, our student athletes, our scholars and ballers are in the room for moments like that. And I'm so proud of that. We refer to these moments and these kinds of situations that they encounter as beyond the 94 by 50. Beyond the dimensions of the basketball court. I know we talked about this as our classroom, and it is, but we also go beyond that, and that means our community. One of the goals of our program, we have 5 goals for 5 players on the court, but one of our goals is to do well and to do good. And so we're talking all the time, what else can we do for others? How can we be of in service, Marshall? To that word serve and service. I know it's so near and dear to your heart. So all of that is a part of who we are, what we try to accomplish. And I know that it impacts our players, Jim, in a way that when they see individuals like Mark and yourself and Carrie and Aaron and others that come to the Breakfast Club and are part of different things, that you're inspiring others. Like you're there to inspire them. We don't motivate. They can't be here with us and think that we're going to motivate them. They're motivated to be here. Our job now is to inspire them to go beyond. And so the inspiration that takes place with individuals like all of you on the panel and others that have been so gracious and brilliant and thoughtful in giving to share with our team. We have programs in our program called required reading or required viewing, something that I do. I find an article, I make sure that article is sent out or even copied. I give it out to our players. We may have a little pop quiz on what was the article about. Just recently, it was, we had something that was for a gentleman by the name of Martin Greenfield, who was lost his family in Auschwitz, the concentration camp, but went on to become an incredible tailor in New York and made suits. Ended up being being from Auschwitz all the way to making suits for presidents and actors and athletes, and just passed away here recently. But for them to know the different walks of life, different people, and the things that they have done to inspire others. That's so big for us, is to think about how can we inspire someone else by listening and learning from the likes of all of you. So that's in terms of modeling and being intentional. I think are the 2 words that ring the heart for me of how we can do a better job of continually to have our youngsters and our youth to go on and do great things, not only for themselves, but for others. You think of, as we mentioned throughout earlier, with the sport of basketball being a team sport, as we know, and I marvel at team sports in general. Mark mentioned, the Nelson Mandela example of changing the world, changing lives through sports, and obviously with team sports, it can really happen at a magical level in a magical way because of bringing so many different walks of life together for one common goal, which is to be successful, to win, and you have to be able to, as we know, to do those things. And Marshall, you talked about it, of giving of yourself for the greater good of the group. And one of the things that, is we always preach, and we have it on our locker room wall, is one of our favorite sayings for our basketball program is, good teams have good players, great teams have great teammates. I've never been a part of or knew of a great team that you didn't have littered throughout the whole team great teammates. And we know in terms of what is a great teammate, what does that mean? And Marcia, you epitomized to me, and before I even had a chance to even know you, to watch you play throughout your illustrious career, of someone that knew what it meant to be a great teammate. You know what that means, to be able to give of yourself for others, for the group to be successful, to be thoughtful, to be able to wonder what does someone else need from you today, not what can you get from them. You've always been that. That's been a part of your DNA, which is is the reason why you have always been on great teams because of you being a great teammate. So good teams have good players. Great teams have great teammates. And so when we think of that for our sport, our basketball, for our teams, and Jim, we're gonna be on teams majority of the rest of our lives, God willing us to live long. Think about our family, our faith, our community, our organizations. Being a part of a team is such a wonderful and very powerful thing. And we instill that. We make sure that that is really echoed within our program, how proud you are to be a part of a team. To know that every day it's not going to be your day. You're going to be that. How can someone else lift you up? It's going to happen. And the attitudes and things that you can bring to a team. My mother, I get all the quotes from my mom. My mother had another one that she taught with her years of teaching. Attitudes are contagious. Is yours worth catching? So in terms of things, about the team, how do we bring something in for the team? And I think as we've tried to instill that within our team and our players, they take that and go beyond that. That's again what we say beyond the 94 by 50. We're trying to teach lessons that are appropriate for us within the confines of a court, the dimensions of the basketball court, the 94 by 50. But you know what? This really resonates as we move beyond the 94 by 50. I can give you a quick example that just hit my mind right now when the Colin Kaepernick, discussion and controversy and the social justice that he would take in the knee just in football games and how that erupted around the country and got hijacked, as in my opinion, and went in so many different directions of being politicized. But one of our players, Jim, was on campus and was on a student transit bus and sitting there, and then others come on and they're having this pretty loud debate about it, and he was feeling somewhat uncomfortable. He didn't know how he was feeling. He didn't want them to know that he was listening. He's a black basketball player, and here's some comments and things that are happening. He's at Harvard. These are Harvard students. And he mentioned when he came to practice that day, there was an article in each one of our players' chair in the locker room. Specifically, I do that. I made that article. I highlight what I cliff notes. Sometimes they don't read the whole damn article. I got to make sure they read the things that they're supposed to read. So I highlight it myself. But article was in their chair. And one of the things that he talked about after that, how it made him feel so much more comfortable being in the locker room, knowing that the words that we use, our locker room and our environment has to be safe, supported, and inclusive. And he was okay with his thoughts about it. He was okay to have discussions within the locker room about something controversial. So thinking of what we do and how we can go about being on a team, how that can go beyond just that locker room or our actual dimensions of playing the game. And so very proud of moments like that we have been able to help our players realize of their moments and their voices and finding their way beyond the actual game of basketball. But this is where they kind of, as Kerry said, you find your voice, you find your confidence, you find your vibe, you feel your footing, your standing of being able to go say and discuss how you truly feel and being confident and trusting in who you are to be able to say these things in a thoughtful, respectful way, which is another thing that we teach. It's okay for us to have all kinds of disagreements and thoughts and things, but as long as we're thoughtful and we're respectful in how we go about making our points or making sure we're saying how we feel. So I just think those are things or elements and layers that are part of sports, specifically basketball or team sports, that can certainly have these youngsters go out and be ambassadors for social change, have a voice in social justice, take a stand versus social issues, whatever they may be, but they're thoughtful and respectful in their way of doing it.